What's going on, guys? So today we're going to do something a little bit different. Today I had a subscriber request that I do somewhat of a best cards list, but for specific pure decks. So like for those of you that new players every week, you're looking for what cards would be great, let's say for a pure arts and cultures deck to try to get the rewards or the gems every week, right? Because there's challenges that come out every week. So what I did is I put a list together and I basically built a spreadsheet. So we're going to talk about some of the cards on my list and how I got basically my point value that I've ranked my cards by and how I came up with that. So let's count it down. I'm going to say I got 20 cards on this list. And we started this, like I said, this is a pure. So I'm going to start my first video here for arts and culture cards only. So basically what cards are great in an arts and culture only deck. So basically looking at just that theme, and then I've got cards that are good in that theme specifically and rankings here. So I'm going to kick it off with my first card, and I'm going to explain off this card here how I came about getting a rank on it. So looking at first card up is Apple Tree Man. So the card is a 7 base energy card. So I am basing my tier list or my best cards off of efficiency. So these are cards that could be used in not just one either high energy or low energy type format. It's cards that are what gives me the most power per energy spent. So I am basing it off that so that I can see a balanced list based on if I spend 1 energy, how much am I getting back for that energy spent? Now, I took it a step further and I said, okay, so this card specifically, for example, a 7 energy card that costs 7 energy, I should get at a minimum 70 power. So for every 1 energy spent, I want to get at a minimum 10 power. So what I've done is I've said, okay, this card right here costs 7, so at a minimum I need 7 power, right? This card base power-wise is only giving me 57, but its max potential as far as ability goes, for the turn it's played, it's going to give me 114. So if I add the two together, I'm getting a total of 171 max power on the turn it's played for a best case scenario, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 171 and I'm going to subtract out that baseline that I said it is expected to get. So I'm looking at a number over expectation, right? So basically I'm taking my 171 that I calculated, I'm subtracting out the baseline 70 that I'm expecting it to get no matter what, and I'm ending with a 101 over my base. Okay, so now I'm taking that 101 and I'm dividing it by the cost of the card, 7. Right, so 101 over 7, I am left with approximately a 14 a 14 rated card. So it's like the power per energy. So I'm getting 14 power over my base of energy per energy spent. I'm sorry. So that's what I did. So I don't know if you guys like that or not, but that's how I came up with my list. And what I did is I looked at just cards that I thought could potentially make the list. And this card came a little lower than I expected. I thought it was going to be a little higher, but that 7 cost is what's hurting it because it's so expensive. All right, so this card was the very bottom of my list, and it was at a 14.4, roughly. Next up on the list, we're going to number 19 now. We're going to talk about another card I thought would rate higher is the Lovers. Now, obviously, this card is kind of affected by the fact that you only play 2 cards when you play it. So it has that downside, right? You're not going to be able to play the full 3. And it's expensive. That 8 is basically 80 I have to shave off my power level, right? So for the 8 energy I'm spending, I'm going to get the max power, the turn I play it, of 210. Okay, so I'm going to subtract out now my 80 out of that, so I'm going to be left with 130 divided by 8. This card is only getting me a tier level of 16.25. So that's where this is, 16.25. So next up, we're going to talk about my next card on the list. I thought would be a little higher again because the energy cost is cheaper. Hamburger. Just an easy card to slot in most decks, similar to the first two. They're just easy cards to slot into an Arts and Cultures deck. That's why I chose them. They're not very specific. It's not requiring me to have several different cuisine cards, for instance, in the deck. So this card I can slot into any Arts and Culture deck, and it would be halfway decent, right? So for only 3 energy, I'm going to get a max power of 87 on the turn I play it, which is going to give me 19 on my power per energy, basically over my baseline. So I'm getting 19 power per energy for this card. So decent. All right, next up, we're going to talk about one that kind of surprised me. It came up a little higher than I expected, and it does fit the bill for this. I should be on all here. I don't own this card. Rubik's Cube. So when played, if played between 2 Arts and Culture cards, you're going to gain 27 power for 3 turns. So obviously, if we're a pure Arts and Cultures deck, we're going to get that no matter what, right? So anytime we play this card, we're going to hopefully play 3 cards. We're going to take advantage. Best case scenario here, we're going to get 108 power on that turn, which is going to equate to 26 power per energy over my base. So pretty decent. We're up to 26 now, and this is card number 17, I believe? 2019, yeah, card 17. Just an easy card to slot into a pure Arts and Cultures deck. Next up, I'm going to talk about a card I really like, and this is going to be another interesting explanation on how I came up with this. So if you read this card, its ability is focused around energy. So you saw in the beginning how I said that for every 1 energy I'm spending, I need 10 back, right? But I originally had tried saying, okay, well, this card now, for every energy I'm receiving back or hurting my opponent, I'm going to say it's worth 10. But I think that was a little too low because I think energy in the moment when you play cards is worth more than just the cost of the card, right? So because it's an ability, it's affecting the game right then and there. So what I did is I basically valued energy higher when you get it from an ability, okay? So I said 15. I think 1 energy, when you receive it, is going to be worth 15 at that time. So that's how I came up with this card. So this is going forward for all the rest of the cards that have this. So I said that Center Clause now is max power, basically, because I'm converting energy now to power. So he would get 154 max power the turn he's played. So dividing, obviously, by his cost, that's going to put him at 28.5 on his score, which is pretty decent. Next up, I'm looking at another card here. Helen Keller is going to be the card I want to see. Helen, where's she at? All right, and she's a 6-cost card, so a little higher. We're getting up to a little bit higher costed cards now, which really the list, I feel like, is better. Like the lower cards seem to be a little better the way I built this, but that's because if we just went for all the highest cards, I think if I wouldn't have factored in the cost of the cards, you'd just see all the really expensive cards showing up as the best cards, which isn't always the case, right? So we have to factor in the cost. So Helen Keller, on the turn she's played, now obviously you have to lose the round. You have to lose the first round to be able to. So let's say best case scenario, you play the start of round 2, right? So that permanent energy is now affecting the rest of the game. So that effect is what we're getting. So for just the 1 turn we play her, that 15 is now going to be for the rest of the game. So that's how I counted up her power just from 1 time played. So she's going to get 237 power on the turn she's played, which is going to equate to a 29.5 on her score. So that's pretty decent too. Next card on the list, we're going to another card that's really good in an Arts and Culture only deck, and we are talking the Mummy, guys. You read this ability, it just seems like it slots in perfect. So when returned, your Arts and Culture cards, wherever they are, gain +11 until played. So the Mummy's max power per turn, So if you have literally an entire deck of arts and culture cards, he's going to give you 243 power on the turn he's played, which equates to a 30.5 for his score. So pretty strong. Next card on my list is the Snow Queen. So she says, when played, if it's the last turn of a round, gain plus 10 power permanently and give your opponent minus 10 permanently. So we're basically saying we're getting 20 power permanently back, right? So for her, she is going to be, so that's when you play her, best case scenario, what is her total power for the game after one play? She will be at 304 max power, and that equates to a 33.4 on her score for as far as energy over, power over energy there. So pretty decent. We're going to get that 33. So, all right. Next up, we are going to talk about another really good card in an arts and culture deck. We have, again, this is just for pure arts and culture. There's obviously better cards out there that can be higher scores here, but if we're just focusing strictly on arts and culture, if I can spell this card, where is it? It's going to be the Renaissance if I can find it. Clearly didn't spell it right. Rennie, is it? No? Oh, it's because I'm filtered here. That's why. So, Renaissance. There you are. That's why. All right, so the Renaissance. We are looking at a total power level, or actually, let's read the card. So, obviously, your arts and culture cards, wherever they are, gain plus 10 until played. So, if we have a full fist of arts and culture cards in our deck, the turn we play this card, we're getting 220 power. And with the cost at only 5, that's going to equal 34 power over our energy there. So, pretty strong. And again, that's over the baseline, so we subtract out the baseline. Next up, I want to talk about a card that's kind of obvious that it would be good, but the requirement now is obviously you have to have, several. This would be a full deck of arts and culture cards over 70 base power, so that'd be pretty hard to do. But again, I'm taking this as if you built a deck completely with cards over 70 base power and factored in, the arts and culture effect. So it'd be tough. You'd have to find a lot of cards that are not the greatest. So that would be 17 cards that get affected because you're not going to count it, obviously. So that puts us at, let's see, we're going to have 298 power from that effect. And that's going to put us at a 32.5. So I actually just adjusted my calculation because I realized I had 18 cards and counted it, so I just adjusted it. So that actually is a little bit lower than the last two cards we mentioned. So my mistake there. Next up, I want to talk about another good card. We have another surprising card, I feel like, but this is why we're making the list, because there are cards that could surprise you with how good they are in this this type of arts and culture only, especially in like a casual match, So this card specifically says your arts and culture cards, wherever they are, gain plus 10 power until this is returned to your deck. Okay, so that means we're going to get, for the 5 energy spent, we're going to get a total of 233 power, which is going to equate to a score of 36.6. So pretty good. Next up, another card I didn't expect to be so high on the list, but that's a reason why everybody plays this card, Art Deco. So we're converting our energy, like I said, from you're basically getting 15 energy, right? But because we're getting it, so this card gains it permanently, right? You're going to get it for the entire game. So best case scenario, this is played on turn 1. You're basically going to get 18 energy throughout the game, right? So that's 180 energy converted to power there. So max power per turn, you're going to get 310 when this is played for a score of 41.67. So pretty good. All right. This next one really surprised me, but it has a downside. So we'll discuss that. It's called the Star. So right here, I didn't expect this card. Actually, I just was like, I wonder what this card will get because it's permanent power. But the downside to this card is it has to be on round 1. So if you don't get this card in round 1 and you draw it in round 2, completely garbage card, right? Garbage card. But if you get it in that first round for its max potential, this card is scoring quite high. So you get 272 power if you get it on turn 1. And that equates to a power level of 44.4. So really decent. Another card, again, a lot of these cards really kind of surprised me with how high they scored. Some of these under the radar cards here. So we got, I know you guys always make fun of me when I say this one, but Jola Boca Flood, probably butchering that again. But when drawing your arts and culture cards in hand, gain plus 24 until played. And this is only a 2-drop. So that's a lot of power. We're getting 120 power, which puts us at a score of 50 even. So 50 power per energy. Pretty good. Next card we're going to talk about is an obvious choice. So a lot of people would most likely slot this into a deck. And it is Hell. So for only 3 energy, you're getting a lot for this card, right? You're going to get a max power, the turn it's played, of 196. So for that 3 energy, that's going to equate to 55.3 on our score. 55.3. Next up, I think this one's going to surprise you guys quite a bit. And I've been talking about this card for a while. I think this card's really, really good. And especially in a casual match, 100-meter sprint. So this card, because it's so cheap, at 1 energy cost, you're getting 70 power, right? So divide that by divide that out. We're going to get so subtract out the 10, that gives us 60. Divide by 1, you're at 60 power. So 60 even on our power over the cost there. All right, next up. This card's probably more obvious here, this next card. It's going to be Michelangelo. So good card. We all know he's a good card, especially in a cheap, if you're playing like a casual match where the energies or either a low energy week or a casual match. This card's really good if you build around all legendary cards or a lot of legendary cards. So let's say best case scenario, you put an entire deck of legendary cards together. The turn he's played, you're going to get 214 power, and that equates to a 61.3 for the score. 61.3. Next up, we're going to have Krampus. It's coming in at our, number 3 slot here, Krampus. So in the top 3 now. He is, again, because this is permanent power, that the opponent's losing, and potential that if they have a lot of arts and culture cards in their deck, they really get hit badly by this. So this is obviously, he's scoring high because this is best case scenario. Obviously, he's not going to usually score as high, but that's the risk you take with this card, right? So best case scenario with this card, he can put down 344 power, and that equates to a score of a 76. So very high score for this card. But again, it's very situational. So my other list, I've actually refined it a little bit more. I take into account, I've got different weighted measures based on whether these cards, are situational like that, are very specific, and if they have random effects within the card, they get weighted down. So I didn't do it for this list specifically, but my master list, I do have the cards weighted a little differently. But because that's so much more biased, I didn't do it this way for this video. So these cards are not weighted based on negative abilities, negative effects, such as like Hell. You have to have lost 2 rounds. To me, that's a negative effect. So I would weight Hell a little lower because of a negative effect like that, of having to have lost 2 rounds for it to be basically be able to use its ability, right? So that, to me, is a negative effect. I would derate Hell But again, we're not doing that in this video. We are doing best case scenario. So number 2 on our list. Again, this is another situational card. That's why it is so high on our list. It's Hygie. So again, your card, when returned, your cards with 0 base energy, wherever they are, gain plus 23 until played. So if you had literally an entire deck of arts and culture cards and they were all 0 base energy, you are going to get 421 power by playing this card one time, which equates to a score of 130. It's a huge score there, huge score. So very good card, but again, very specific. You have to have, so again, this would be a card I would weight lower usually because of its downside of having to have so many 0 and 1 costed cards in the deck. So that was best case scenario. Your entire deck was 0 base energy, aside from itself, obviously. Next up, final card on the list. This card really shocked me. I actually almost didn't even check it, but I ended up doing it like, oh, this card's probably pretty high, and it's insanely high. So the Fool. So if you had a deck of all arts and culture and all of them were tarot cards, which is, I mean, the Emperor is in, right? It wants at least 14, so it's pretty feasible, right? But in this situation, we're saying my entire deck is tarot cards, which again, we would derate this card typically because of the specificness. But in this situation, we didn't. We said all tarot cards, we're going to get 720 power because I'm saying we're going to get basically 16 permanent power for every turn of the game because our entire deck is tarot. So that equates to 720 power if played or if drawn on turn 1. So subtract out its cost, minus 10, 710 would be its score. Insane. Like, what is that, like 5 times higher than the last number 2? But again, that is very specific. You to be able to take advantage of this card, your entire deck would have to be, or to get that score anyway, your entire deck would have to be tarot cards, right? So huge potential with that card, right? Huge upside, but again, downside with choice of cards. So, all right, guys, that's the video. I hope you really enjoyed that. I enjoyed putting it together. I really like trying to come up with cool lists, different best card situations. And this one I had math behind it. You know, I figured out how to calculate some stuff and come up with what I thought was an interesting way to look at these cards and try to be, you know, not so biased with it. Not just say, oh, Hell's clearly the best card, right? Because I just showed in certain situations it's clearly not the best card. Obviously, best case scenario, Hell wasn't even close to the best card on the list, right? And I think a lot of people probably would have said, ooh, Hell's probably going to be the number 1 card here. Or what other card could have probably been a good number 1 candidate? Maybe the Lovers people would have thought would have been up there a lot higher, which we said was actually quite low on our list. Yeah, I think Hell would have probably been what most people, looking at my list, what most people would say would be number 1. But again, sometimes doing stuff like this, you can really see outliers that, oh, wow, like I should try that out because I can really take advantage of such a broken ability and really get a lot of power for it. So, like I said, Fool specifically is insanely high. So you could really take advantage of that. So, but all right, guys, again, that was just for pure arts and culture decks. So there's obviously a lot of other arts and culture cards, but they affect other albums, so we didn't include them. Like Heimdall, for instance. You would need a card from every album, or 6 albums, to be able to utilize his ability. So because this was for pure arts and culture only, that's why he wasn't included. So again, just reiterating that fact. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like I said, I really enjoyed doing it for you. Again, if you like the content, please hit that like button and that subscribe button, guys. We are growing the channel. I really appreciate all you guys and everybody watching. And I hope you like this video. Let me know in the comments if you do. If you like this, I will continue with other albums. But if you didn't really care for this, just let me know so I can, I don't want to waste my time doing that. And, you know, this spreadsheet takes a lot of time to try to put these together. So if you guys don't enjoy it, I won't bother making these anymore. But again, just let me know. If you do, if you felt like you got a lot of value out of it, then I can continue on. But feedback would be appreciated. So, all right, guys, have a good night.